What's up? Welcome back to Debating Metal. I'm Kenneth Dean, the Dean of Metal, along with my co-host Chris Kaye. And this week we have another head-to-head for you with new wave of American heavy metal veterans Shadows Fall.
With 7 studio albums to their credit, we're going to pit 2 of this Boston band's finest albums against each other. We're going song for song, solo for solo, with 2004's War Within versus 2009's Retribution to see which album is better.
So remember, if you like what you hear today, click on the subscribe button and we'll give you a new episode each week so you can hear our opinions on some of your favorite metal bands. Well, this week it's Shadows Fall. And Chris, I know you're not a big fan of metalcore. So I know this must have been torturous for you.
It wasn't that bad. And I'm going to try to be as objective as possible and not just put in my, obviously I'm going to have my opinion. That's just what it is.
You're not allowed to have an opinion.
That's a good thing. I mean, that is
considering this is an
true
opinion
in
show
today's society. But at the same time, like, I'm going to be try to be objective and see it from a, open perspective.
Sure you are.
I'm going to do my best.
All right. Well, Shadows Fall. Okay, so I kind of came into liking Shadows Fall in a couple different ways. I started working at the music store again back in 2004, and that's when The War Within came out. And so we had these end caps on the ends of the aisles, and they kept putting this album, The War Within, on the end cap. And I'm like, who is this? And then we started playing promotional CDs, and the promotional CDs that the store gets from different labels and stuff like that. Sometimes you get the album from the band, or sometimes you get something from the label that has several different songs from different artists. And in this particular case, it would have been Century Media. But we actually got a CD that was kind of like put together by different companies. And they had all sorts of eclectic songs from easy listening to rap, to hard rock, to metal. And the song that they had on there, if I'm not mistaken, was What Drives the Weak. And from The War Within. And it was just, it caught my attention. And then I said, well, you know what, the hell with this. I'm just going to open one up and listen to it while I'm, in between, closing duties. And I thought it was pretty good. But I couldn't at the time deal with some of the vocals. I still wasn't there yet. But there was a lot of stuff about this album that really, really, really caught my attention. So that's how I came to like Shadows Fall. And then I went to see them. I went to see Ozfest, and they were on Ozfest. So I was like, this is pretty cool. And they were great on stage, and I've seen them a couple times. So that was a pretty cool thing. The one thing I really, really like about Shadows Fall, and I don't know if you caught any of this while you were listening to it, but they're very, very influenced by 80s metal. And it shows all over their playing. I
have some notes on that, actually.
Okay.
So, I can hear some definite influences from various sources. And there were a couple things I caught and picked up on from the band's style that it kind of also clued me into a couple reasons I don't like metalcore. So I thought that was interesting that kind of analyzing this made me go, oh, I kind of get it.
I've never found them to be like the other metalcore bands.
They're not. But they're like a proto metalcore band in a way. Like and there's some notes on that as we're talking about this as well. But there's some early elements of metalcore that I think bands were inspired by them, and then they in turn were inspired by the people they inspired.
Oh, okay, I get that. I mean, that happens all the time.
Music,
So yeah, they weren't like their genre mates for the most part. Like I can't sit there and say that other than I would say maybe drumming styles, to me there's no comparison to Lamb of God. Okay, to me they had a lot of comparison to God Forbid, who was out at the same time, because God Forbid was also very 80s influenced and did a lot of, like, their songs sounded like they were 80s metal song, and then all of a sudden he starts singing and it's this brutal, growl. I'm like, well, that's not 80s, but it's pretty cool sounding. So it was one of those things that's what really caught my attention about Shadows Fall. And definitely much more melodic than your typical metalcore band. And for me, it's unfortunate that they got signed to Atlantic after the success of The War Within, and they ended up putting out an album called Fallout from the War, which was kind of leftovers, and it was kind of like an album due to Century Media. And then they were signed to Atlantic. They put out their next album, I believe it's Threads of Life, on Atlantic, or it was distributed by Atlantic or something like that, but it was a major label distribution, and the album went nowhere. I think they tried too hard to make it accessible to some degree, and kind of blew it. And I believe they got dropped right after that, or they got lost in the shuffle between ownership and change in management. All sorts of shit was going down, and then they ended up being back on the independent circuit. Oh, it's like wrestlers.
Speaking of wrestlers,
and then they went back to doing what they've always done in the past, which is basically release the albums on their own, and self-finance to some degree, and or get some distribution company to help them with it. And they did that with Retribution. They did that with the Fire in the Sky. So it's weird. But we're going to talk about two albums tonight: The War Within and Retribution. And I know you are inquiring as to why I picked these two albums and left off the one in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, there's usually a reason why we've done that. Where, like when we've done head-to-heads with Slayer, we didn't do Rain and Blood against anything else because of its kind of significance and impact, and it's almost unfair to rate it against anything else. Even if, say, for instance, one of our personal opinions may be that one's better or something like that, it's almost unfair to rate it in that way. So I was just curious what your reasoning was for picking these two.
Well, like I said, there was a lot of push for The War Within, and to the point where The War Within sold 200,000 units in 2004. And at that time, for an independent album from Century Media, that was huge. So they were on the cusp.
Isn't it still Century Media's biggest seller?
I think it is.
Yeah.
So you get to something like that, and then all of a sudden they signed to a major label. And actually, it was kind of weird. They signed to Atlantic and Roadrunner. I believe Roadrunner was what was distributing them in the rest of the world. Atlantic was the U.S. And Atlantic, I really believe that sometimes they hit gold by accident. Or hit pay dirt by accident on bands, because to me they almost don't know what to do with certain artists. And in this particular case, with Shadows Fall, they didn't really know where to put them, because yet they are so melodic, but yet they're so heavy. It's like what category? And I don't think Atlantic had any idea about the metalcore genre. And they just picked up this band that had sold 200,000 records, and it's like, oh yeah, we're going to get a gold record out of this. And I think between putting them in the studio, I don't know what happened there, but the chemistry didn't hit right. So the Threads of Life, or Threads of Life, that album is, to me, in my opinion, and this is again my opinion. Threads of Life, to me is not as good as The War Within and is not as good as Retribution. So I personally like War Within and Retribution the most. So I said, you know what, let's put those two albums together and see where it goes. Because those two albums are also independent records as opposed to, the one major label. So that's the reason why I chose these two records for tonight.
All right. That's good enough reason for me.
All right. You want to go ahead and lead The War Within, you said?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was going to have you lead all of it, but, I did a lot of research. So.
All right.
So you want to tell us about the album beforehand?
Yes. So let's give some little credits here. The War Within was released on September 21st, 2004. It was produced by Chris Zeus Harris and Shadows Fall. It was released on Century Media Records, as we've already stated, and it was recorded at Planet Z Studios in Hadley, Massachusetts. So go for it.
All right. So one thing I wanted to note was I listened to these albums before I kind of did any research on the band, and I realized that that I didn't really notice that there was two singers, essentially. You have the lead vocals and the clean vocals. So you have Brian Fair and Matt Backen. Is that how you say his name?
I have no idea. I always look at it as saying Bashand or Bashan.
Okay, it could be.
Or Bacan. Well, after Karen and Sharon last week, maybe it's Bacanned.
It could be. So anyway, it hit me. I was like, oh, okay, that's the difference. Okay, so I just wanted to put that out there that I didn't recognize that out first. But the album starts off with The Light That Binds. It's a nice acoustic intro, followed by a pretty good solo and a dissonant riff. That's something that it becomes kind of a staple of their sound. A lot of acoustic intros, a lot of great solos. I mean, John Denai, I think, is a fantastic guitarist. And then they have this approach with these kind of dissonant, kind of dark sounding riffs. The main riff is not bad here. I actually kind of like it. It switches to a more like singing style growl from a deathier growl for the main chorus. Drumming is pretty solid. I do like the lyrical theme of trying to hide within what is popular and how it denies your true identity by just trying to fit in. I think that's kind of a running theme in some of the stuff. Maybe that's where The War Within comes from. Obviously, there's the song later, Eternity is Within, but that is that like struggle that I think a lot of people deal with, is trying to fit into society, not always feeling comfortable with themselves and hiding a bit of themselves just to fit in. So pretty good topic there. And I got to say, the second solo in dual harmony is really the highlight of the song for me.
This song, when I first heard it, the first time I really listened to, besides just throwing it into the CD player and it popping up, it really came to be for me when watching the bonus DVD that comes on the deluxe version of this album, and you see Jason Bittner recording his drum footage or his drum track. You see the footage of him recording his drum track on the video, and it's super cool to see that. And then he goes in and he breaks it down. Now, this is there's spots of this song that are pretty quick, and he breaks it down full speed, and then he goes, let me go half speed. And half speed is like the normal speed for most people.
Yeah.
But then he breaks it down, and it's like, this is just amazing to me. I was just blown away. That's where this song really came to my attention, and it became one of my favorite tracks on the album and from Shadows Fall. Brian's vocals, he's not really, how to explain it. You've gotten me into melodic death metal, right? Mm-hmm. So there's death metal vocals which have your harmonized vocals and your tune, you're really low. You sound like a
guttural,
really crazy. guttural Cookie Monster kind of guy. Then there's the screaming that is very prominent in metalcore. And Brian is kind of like a combination of the two. And it's more like a shout, like a deathy shout, a deathy growl.
There's something to that. There's like 3 levels in Shadows Fall, where there's the deeper, more guttural, deathy growl. And I'm not sure who does that. I'm actually curious if is that John Denai? Because I see that he does backing vocals, but I don't know if he's doing clean vocals or what.
So when you hear like the gang vocals and the background vocals sing, it's the whole band, or at least I think it's Matt and John do the background vocals that sound like death growls.
Okay, so there's the death growls, and then there's obviously Brian Fair's kind of like middle ground, and then there's the clean vocals. So there's like 3 different levels all throughout the songs.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing, because it's just so it's unique within this genre to be like that. I mean, there's a lot of bands they're doing their clean vocals and they're screaming, and the clean vocals sometimes they're it's not they're clean, they're straight up, and the guy's singing. There's something to this one that's almost like
there's a rasp to it.
Yeah, it's just different, but I like it. So Brian's vocals, are more of a shout, and you can tell when it's him doing it. I mean, Jason Bittner is just playing this blistering double bass through most of the song. The guitar work on this song is awesome. There's a lot to like about this song. I think it's got a really cool chorus. I mean, there's a hook in it, like I like to say. So I enjoy this song a lot.
So there was something that I noticed that when I heard the drums on this track, I was like, man, the drums are pretty solid here. Like they're very complex, and they're fast. But then there was a few songs where I was like, man, the drums are a little basic for what this is. I was a little shocked that there was this kind of discrepancy in the way that the drums were done on this particular album. And I think, I'll talk a little bit more about it as we go, but I was a little surprised by it, but this was also very early in their career too. I think this was his first album, if I'm not correct.
I don't think so. I think this was his second. Let me double check.
It's either first or second album.
Yeah, it's his second, because he was on The Art of Balance.
Okay.
And I don't think he was on Of One Blood.
No. For sure he wasn't on the first 2 albums.
No. So this was his second album.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so that takes us into the second song. I almost said second album. Enlightened by the Cold. And so this one kind of didn't do much for me at the beginning. I almost kind of wrote it off, and then it kind of caught me. There's something about this that could almost be like a Joey Belladonna Anthrax song. Like, some of the clean vocals really do actually remind me of Joey Belladonna.
Okay, I got that.
The growls are definitely better than Dan Nelson's growls, though.
Oh, wait. Let me stop you for a second, because I just saw a note that I wanted to talk about on The Light That Blinds, and maybe, I don't know if you picked up on this or not, but on the guitar solo.
The Light That Blinds? I thought it was called The Light That Binds.
Is it Binds? No, it's Blinds. The Light That Blinds.
Really? Then it's there's a couple typos in the YouTube music titles on this album then.
Okay. It's Blinds.
It says The Light That Binds. There's another typo. It says The Act of Contriction. And I was like, what the hell is contriction?
Oh, wow. They're freaking bad.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, that makes more sense. The Light That Blinds. Thanks, YouTube music.
Yeah, the Act of Contrition.
No, I figured that one out. Like, whatever, contriction. Jeez.
Yeah, I was like, now you had me confused for a second because I'm like, I'm pretty sure it's Blinds.
Yeah.
But anyhow, on that song, I'm sorry to go back to that song, but part of the guitar solo had a very Iron Maiden-esque feel to it. And I don't know if you caught that or not. A little bit of that late into the solo.
You're talking on the second solo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they have the dual harmony, which is very Iron Maiden-esque.
Right, exactly. That's where I picked up on some Iron Maiden stuff there. All right, so let's go back to Enlightened by the Cold. We just call none of these song titles are what they say they are.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, basically, I left off, kind of dogging Dan Nelson again, which is fun.
Yes, which is always fun.
So the solo's decent, but it's way too short on this song. Like it's like a trickle, It doesn't give you enough.
The solo is 10 seconds long.
It's 10 seconds. That's
10 seconds.
Way too short.
It goes from was it 2:53 or 1:53 to it goes from 43 to 53. Whatever minute they're in, and I was like, "What is that? 10 seconds?
It's not enough."
But it's so good.
I know, but come on, 10 seconds. It's like, yeah. I actually like the clean vocal sections more than I like the more typical metalcore riffs in this song. There's something a little more melodic there that I enjoyed.
Okay, I think this song is really cool. I didn't. Again, it was one of those things I didn't appreciate it at first, and not because I didn't pay attention to it, but because I had to get used to this style of music. I knew that I could no longer just sit here and be someone who liked new metal. I couldn't be someone who liked old. It's a funny thing I say that, old metal, and that by new metal I meant NU.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where I felt like I was starting to get stale in the music that I was listening to, and I got to the point, the next year, I was working and I was no longer working at the record store, but I got to go to Ozfest again. And I really began to enjoy these bands. I went with, my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife. We went there, we enjoyed ourselves. We got there at the minute they opened, and we were there till the minute they closed. So it was a long day for us, and it was just absorbing all this. I realized this is a good band, and this music is what's going on right now. To find out that they were the new wave of American heavy metal was pretty cool, because they played on that whole thing from New Album and the new wave of British heavy metal. So this song just stands out to me because even though it kind of like I get what you're saying, it has that in the verse, that part of metalcore you don't like too much, which is kind of a little bit of a start-stop on the guitars and the drums and all that. But then, yes, there's a clean pre-chorus, and then it's got a really catchy chorus, especially the last line where they repeat Enlightened by the Cold and they go up like another pitch.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. I think the song is really, really cool. To me, I don't think they pushed this song enough when it came time to putting out singles. Because I know they put, What Drives a Week, and then they put Inspiration on Demand as their second single, but this could have easily been a single for them.
I think its only downside is the intro section of the song is just not that strong, whereas the two that actually were listed as singles have kind of like they catch you from the beginning. So
that's true. I get that.
There's some great songs that they're really enjoyable, and when you're a fan of a band, they stick with you, but they don't necessarily have that punch at the beginning or something that really sets them apart. And I think maybe the record company probably was like, well, let's go with these instead, because they, What Drives the Week, I get why it's a single, but we'll get there. So, we're going to go into track 3, Act of Contrition, or or Act of Contrition, as it's supposed to be. So the dual guitar riffs are definitely the best aspect here. Me being a fan of that kind of style of playing, it's gonna, appeal to me a little more than some of the other stuff. The solo really is, on this particular song, the saving grace for me. Towards the 3-minute mark, the song ends and then just starts again. Not really sure why. I know why, the bands will do that with their writing sometimes, but it just doesn't feel like it makes a lot of sense on this particular song. I honestly, if you ended it with that abrupt ending, I think it would be even better. I actually kind of like that, rather than, it's like Return of the King, where you think the movie ends and then it starts again. So this one didn't do a lot for me. Solos are pretty awesome. And I liked that kind of abrupt ending before they just started the song again.
Yeah, when I hear that abrupt ending, I'm always listening for the intro to What Drives the Week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh no, it's still on.
Yeah,
and so it does throw me off. But at the same time, it's still a pretty decent song. I mean, heavy riff, double bass intro, like you talked about. Chorus is split between the clean and dirty vocals. Again, I mean, it's can't be said enough how good John Denai and Matt Bichand are, especially how they play off each other. I mean, they have a really great relationship as two guitar players in a band, much similar to like, Murray and Smith and Downing and Tipton. They have that kind of relationship. And Matt himself is a pretty well-versed guitar player, because he also, he left when Shadows Fall kind of, they didn't split up. They kind of went their separate ways, and they kind of just put the band on hold. They, John, obviously, many people know he joined Anthrax. He was asked to join Anthrax, and then
I think he fits in very well.
Oh yeah, and then Matt ended up joining a band that was led by the God, I can't remember who it was, but anyway, he plays bass. He's in the same band with the guitar player. What's his name from Megadeth? Chris Broderick. Oh, he joined the band with Chris Broderick, and he's playing bass for them. And I don't think they really play much anymore, but okay. And then Matt. Now I think Matt and John are in a band again, a separate band, and they're playing guitar again. So it's, and of course Shadows Fall reunited last year, and they have some dates planned for this year as well. So their relationship is great. Their guitar soloing through all these songs and both these albums are excellent. So it's going to be repeated over and over again throughout this episode how good they are. So
absolutely,
there you
go. I was very surprised how much I enjoyed a lot of these solos. So track 4 is the first single off the album, and it's a pretty cool opening riff. It's one that catches your attention, which I can see why it's the single. It was nominated for a Grammy, but it did lose to Slipknot's Before I Forget, and I have forgotten what that song is. So
Before I Forget.
I forgot Before I Forget.
I like Before I Forget. That's a really good song.
I'm sure at some point we'll have to do Slipknot.
We will be getting to Slipknot eventually. Much to your dismay.
The softer section of this song is very, very mid 2000s. I was transported back to high school. It's all,
is that good or bad?
A little bit from column A and a little bit from column B. It's odd how Brian Fair's vocals can hit this kind of like very grungy Nirvana-esque sound at times. Like he actually had some phrasing that made me remind me. What does that even mean? That reminded me of Kurt Cobain a little bit. It was interesting. So he has definitely some dimension to his voice. He can do some different things with his voice, which is always impressive. And the only thing is this solo was one of the most underwhelming solos on the album to me. It was almost like this song was made for airplay, and it didn't do it for me like some of the other tracks did. But I get why it was the single. And also, there was a lot of Zakk Wylde pinch harmonics on this track.
Oh, yes. But they do it a lot, too. They play a lot of pinch harmonics.
They do, but there's some songs that are more full of it than others.
So you're talking about what drives the week?
Yes.
Right, okay. Because I'll talk about pinch harmonics in a song.
Oh, there's a couple, yeah.
But see, for what drives the week, I like it. It's got a really catchy chorus. I like the interplay between the heavy, rough riffs and then the soft pre-chorus interludes that go on throughout the song. So that's pretty cool. And I can see maybe you not enjoying the metalcore breakdown part. That's around the 3-minute mark.
That's all personal preference. It's neither here nor there. I get why this is a single though, for sure.
And it's weird because, to me, I like the solo because the solo to me is very melodic, and I thought it was very thoughtful. I think it's thought out where you don't seem to agree with that opinion. So it's strange how we can interpret the same song 2 different ways. Yeah,
something about this solo just didn't really resonate with me compared to some of the others. It was definitely better than the 10-second solo before, but that was only just based on longevity.
Yeah, because that 10-second solo was pretty cool.
It was cool, but it was like, where'd it go?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like somebody just comes in and they're gone. Like, what? Where'd you go? Okay, well that again, it's made for being a single, so I get it. But that takes us into track 5, Stillness. I really like the harmony at the beginning. It has a little bit darker tone to it. Although it's kind of a forgettable track for me, it does have one of the strongest solos on the album. Not the strongest, but pretty close. And I really liked this one. That first, I like the riff of the first part of the solo. And then it kind of just rips. It goes from there, and it's a long one. It's like a minute of a nearly 5-minute song. So all the solo that was missing earlier was found here.
Oh, this is where we got it. Oh, sorry, guys.
No, it's an awesome solo. It's like a whole minute long. It's great.
Yeah, this song, what this song does for me at the beginning, it reminds me of Queensryche. There's something about it.
Yes,
at the beginning of the song reminds me of Queensryche. And of course, that only lasts about 44 seconds. And then it goes into some seriously heavy riffing. But in the middle of the heavy riffing, you have those pinch harmonics. You just like someone's stepping on a mouse and just squeaking. But it's not bad, in my opinion. It's just very noticeable.
Yeah.
On that. And
it just sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that the song is pretty much mostly just very straightforward metal song, except when it hits the chorus.
That was kind of what I was going to say. It's like it is what it is. It doesn't explore a lot. It just stays kind of there.
Right. Which is unusual for them because they're usually in a lot of different places throughout the song.
I think that's where the name of the song came from. Stillness, So that takes us to track 6, Inspiration on Demand. This was the second single off the album. And I didn't know what to think of this track, to be honest. It kind of gives me a bit of whiplash with its ideas. It starts off nicely enough with an almost like Gothenburg style riff, which was really cool. Then it just like immediately pops into a soft section. It doesn't breathe with its ideas. It's just like, here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea. And so it goes into from Gothenburg to soft to this almost Pink Floyd-esque lyrics, and then it just speeds off on the main riff, and I'm just like, what are you doing? it doesn't. It never just like takes a minute to repeat itself. You know, like Testament, the Night of the Witch, the song that you always say, like, I wish this repeated right here.
Right.
That's how I felt about this song, where it was, and maybe that's where the title comes from, inspiration on demand, because it's like, oh, here's an idea, here's an idea, here's an idea. You know, it just settle down and play this through, and it would be a much more enjoyable song. Like if they repeated some of these parts a couple times.
Yeah, if they threw in a measure here to just kind of let it breathe.
Mm-hmm. That was how I felt about it. It was just too much, too fast, and it burned out too fast for me.
For me, the song, I mean, it's got a heavy riff to start off the song, and then, you know, it has, you know, some harmony guitars that kind of give way to that slow verse, and it gives way to the slow verse very fast, like you say. The one thing about this song is weird is that for all of Brian's singing that he does on other songs, in the clean vocals and the high pitch that he can achieve, he's almost in the slow parts of the song is almost like talking, but at the same time as he's talking, he's trying to sing, and it almost comes across as he doesn't really know how to sing, and that all the other stuff has to happen for him to be the vocalist. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and I actually have another note about that. Little known fact, Brian recorded all of the singing parts in this song inside of a tin can. That's not true at all, but that's the way it sounds. He stuffed himself into a tin can and sang it. It sounds like, you know how like we kind of rip on black metal for the way that they do the lo-fi recording and everything. There are parts of this song where it sounds like he did the same thing. He did a lo-fi recording, and it's a little bit out of tune. And
right, that's he hits vocally. He hits wrong notes.
Yes, and
I found it unusual that they left it in there like that.
But I think it was on purpose. But I don't know why. So this particular track, just if I was going to rate any of them, you know, and I'm trying to rate them accordingly, and if I would say like the best that I've heard so far is like an 8 maybe, or a 7 over 10 in my opinion, this was like a 3. I don't know, didn't do it for me at all.
Yeah, I didn't see why this was the single or the second single. Like I said, even though, you know, you understood why, you know, for certain reasons, even the fact that what song was it that Enlightened by the Cold,
yeah.
Even though it doesn't start off,
it would be a better single than this one.
I think it would have been a much better single. Yeah. But, you know, the chorus, so getting back to his voice, you know, the chorus goes back with some dirty vocals and some clean highlights. That part is where he shines, where he goes through his normal routine.
There are good parts of the song, don't get me wrong.
I like the solo on this a lot.
Yeah.
On this song. I mean, I think the solo is really good. And then there's parts of it sound to me, and I think this is throughout the whole album, where Matt and John almost kind of double the solos.
Yeah.
They're both playing the same thing, and not necessarily in harmony, because typically when in harmony, one guy is playing a different key or different
not different key, but yeah, he's playing a different
what the hell is that term called? Octave. There you
go. Jesus.
You know, but in some cases, sometimes the guitars allow themselves to be played. Like when Metallica play harmony solos together, it's more about, you know, one's playing, well, I guess they are playing an octave. One's playing a little bit lower, but they're both playing in an upper register, just one a little higher than the other. But this almost sounds like they doubled it. So they're both playing the same exact solo at the same exact notes and the same exact position in the guitar. That's the way it sounds to me. So it's not necessarily harmony, but it's doubled sounding.
That can be effective.
No, and it is, because you listen to it, you hear it throughout the album all over the place, and I think it sounds cool. It's just different, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. So that leads us to track 7, "The Power of I and I," or 1 and 1, no Roman numerals. I wasn't quite sure. It's it's not a bad track. It's got a little bit harsher vocals throughout. We get halfway without any cleaner vocals, which is cool. I like that. With, the kind of in-between harsh vocals and clean vocals right before the solo, I was totally good with this track. I actually liked it. It's I liked that it was a more consistent growl throughout, and it wasn't changing back and forth. And, they didn't have any just straight up singing sections, which I liked too. It was one that I enjoyed more than most. So maybe one of my favorites on the album. I wish the drums were a little more bombastic on this particular track, though. This is the one where when I mentioned earlier that some of the drums were kind of basic, I was shocked by how basic the drums were on this track.
Okay, I get that. I like the song. I like this song a lot because of the chorus. I enjoy the part. This song.
Yeah, it's a good chorus.
This song makes me sing ugly. Like you want to sing that, the power of I. You want that low growl, and you just feel it, and you get that ugly face when you're singing. And I really like this part of that song. So I enjoy this song a lot. And what can I say? To me, it's like semi brutal in the riffing, but it's the guitar work around the riffing that kind of softens it. It's kind of weird to say it that way.
Yeah, it was. One thing about metalcore is it's a lot, and it's very often vocally driven, like vocally rhythm pattern driven. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what is going on with the vocals will be matched by the guitars or the rhythm section. Like they do the same kind of like da 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 da, like something like that, where everything's the kind of the same. Mm-hmm. And this particular track was not like that, where it was there was multiple parts going on where everybody had a part to play. And without it wouldn't be as unique, I guess.
Right.
So it was varied.
Yes, it was. And I like the solo on this a lot. Mm-hmm. I thought it was another well thought out solo.
I think that's something that can be said for most of the solos on this album. Honestly,
yes,
I was very impressed by the solos. So track 8 is "Ghosts of Past Failures." So this is another track with some similar ideas to Gothenburg death metal. It has a nice intro and main riff. I did not mind the clean vocals here at all, as they were a little bit. So I'm gonna say this: like some metalcore has a whiny vocal sound to it, and that's kind of the appeal. Like people like that kind of the screamo stuff.
Yeah, the leftover emo kids.
Yeah. And so that's I can't take that stuff. It just, for me, it never resonated with me. It became very popular. I enjoy what you enjoy. I never say anything different, but it just doesn't work for me. But I like that the clean vocals in this album specifically are not very. They're like straight up. They're just singing. They're not whiny. There's no like pitch changes at the end of phrasing, stuff like that. I liked it. So the softer transition between the main riff and the solo section was a cool lead in to another good solo and harmony follow up. I thought it was a great song.
I like this song. This song really is got back on my radar after not hearing the album for a long time. Mm-hmm. So that's cool. I mean, it's got some really nice chugging guitars in the latter part of the verses, so I like that. And the chorus is kind of weird. The chorus almost kind of call and response type, and it's very catchy. So I like that part about it. the song slows down somewhere in the middle there.
Yeah, I can get that what you're saying, but it's not straight up call and response.
No, it's not straight up call and response, but there's a part where you can almost see the audience responding.
Yeah,
and then
I get that.
To that. So it's kind of like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it was intentional to be a call and response type thing. I just
no,
think
there's a song on the next album that definitely is intentional that way, and that it's worlds apart in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. So this song also has one of the longer solos on the album, and that ends with the harmony part, and that's real prevalent part of the beginning of the song. So that's the cool part of this song. I like this song.
It tied in well from the beginning to end. It was well done.
Yeah, this track is definitely, to me, one of the highlights on the album.
Number 9 is Eternity Is Within. It's got a thrashier intro with heavier drums. So kind of back to some of the stuff we heard, like say with The Light That Blinds. Very, very good drums on this track. And again, has some of those kind of Joey Belladonna-esque moments. It's an all right one. Though there's, it's like, it feels like a track 9. It's kind of forgettable. It feels like padding this far into the album, and it has a lot of the metalcore tropes that would come in the future. It's almost like proto metalcore. It's got the smattering of harsh vocals. Smattering of clean vocals within the harsh vocals. It's got an early version of a breakdown at the 2-minute mark, followed by really what could be considered another breakdown. So for at least like 2, it's got like 2 proto breakdowns. So you can see, like, if you look at this in retrospect, you can see how the ideas here really developed in the metalcore, because there is a lot of thrash in this. There's ideas from other genres of metal. They probably got some influence from some of these bands from Scandinavia and stuff like that, and you can feel like this is what metalcore is going to develop into, or develop from, I guess I should say. But it's not quite there yet. There's these ideas in there, and the last solos are really, really good one, and it's the most dynamic part of the track. It almost feels like it doesn't belong in the track because it is so much kind of like a cut above everything else that's going on.
This song for me was kind of filler. It's not one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's a quick paced song. Got a lot of metalcore elements, but it just, to me, was not very memorable, and I just kind of skip over it most of the time.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so that takes us to the final track of the album, Those Who Cannot Speak. What's kind of cool about this one is it's a song written for Bryan Fair's autistic niece and nephew, and how he had to learn to kind of be accustomed to their learning disabilities. This has one of the better riffs on the album, and at moments some more guttural vocals. So this is kind of what I was talking about, like when I was asking who was doing those guttural vocals, because it's clearly different, than just the main vocals from Bryan Fair. It's a good closer. I thought it was a good final track on the album.
It's definitely the final track in the album, and I like the acoustic intro that starts the song, goes into the 45-second mark, and then, some heavy riffs and some soloing kind of take over the song at that point. There's a lot of guitar work going on in the song. It's a lot of different things going on. And I like that, because it's layered. Layered songs, to me, some can be really good, some can be horrible. But usually when they're done right, they're pretty good songs. And I think in this particular case, it's done well. It's not necessarily the best song on the album, but it is done well, and I like the guitar work. And the reason why is because these two guitar players are just so good at what they do, and they're very thoughtful. I mean, they don't just chug to chug. They don't just solo to solo. They don't just throw a million notes out there. They really do think about, is this solo going to be more melodic if it's slower? Is it going to do right by the song if I do it this way? And I think that's what they think about a lot when it comes to these songs.
And I agree with you. The only exception I would say it didn't quite feel that way was on Eternity Is Within, where I just felt like the solo outclassed the song itself. But that's a testament to their soloing. Exactly.
It's unfortunately it's like, well, this song's might as well just shred it here type of thing.
Got to make up for the rest of it.
Exactly.
And not saying it was a terrible song or anything, but at the same time, that solo was that much better. So in conclusion, this definitely feels like I said, a proto metalcore album. It's not metalcore, but you can see the band is transitioning from their early death metal sound to this what they are now. And there's a lot of good ideas here. It's not my taste, but that being said, I did enjoy it more than I thought it would.
Well, that's good. I'm glad I was able to enlighten you by the cold.
Oh my God.
No, I mean,
I'm less blinded by the light.
Okay, Bruce.
No, that's the first track of my album.
Oh, that's right, The Light That Blinds. I just thought you were trying to be like, Bruce Springsteen. Anyway, we regress. Like I said, I really, really enjoyed this album. It was my first experience with Shadows Fall, and it turned me into a fan. And for any band, that's what you try to accomplish with an album. If a person hasn't heard the album and they hear it for the first time, you want them to become a fan, and that's what happened with me. I really became a fan with this.
You know what my first experience with Shadows Fall was?
What's that?
Rob Van Dam's theme song from like 2006.
Mm-hmm.
They released an album. WWE released an album called like Retribution. It was Reckless Intent, I think.
Okay.
And my sister collected all of those, like every WWE album up to that point. And so that song was on it, and he used that as his theme song for a while. But I didn't know who. Rob Van Dam.
No, but what song was it?
It was a remix of his theme song, like his old theme song that he used to use. Shadows Fall did a version of it where they added vocals to it. And
okay, Fury of the Storm.
Yeah,
That's the song.
So basically, they took whatever, I think maybe Jim Johnson wrote it or something. They took whatever riff was there and they added their take on it.
Ah,
this was before they started just using licensed music. Which is why you probably can't find it online.
Right. Okay, I gotcha. Well, for me, like I said, this album was my first exposure. I enjoyed it. I became a fan, and I started getting all their music. Oddly enough, though, I never went back and got the two previous albums. Now I've listened to them, and I do like The Art of Balance much more than I like the first album. But it's still haven't really sunk my teeth into those albums at all. Especially the first one, because Brian's not on that one, and neither is Jason. But on Of One Blood, which is the second album, I know Brian's singing on that, and there's one song on there that I like a lot. I'm trying to think which one.
I like the first drummer though; he's really good.
Oh, Dave Germain, yeah, he's pretty good. I mean, you got to be pretty decent to play in this genre, that's for sure. Yeah. I think Of One Blood is the one song that I do like. Yeah, I believe that's it. but I don't know exactly because I don't listen to this that often, so I think that's the song.
The way you said it though was that's it. That's all I like. But it may be just that you haven't listened.
That's
to
the only song I know on
there. Exactly. Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to Retribution. Retribution was. Came out September 15th, 2009. So you're talking 5 years after The War Within, and it was basically the second studio album after War Within, but the third release, because they did release Fallout from the War, which was some leftover songs, a couple cover songs, as well as some. I think there was a couple new songs in there that were just kind of left over from sessions that Century Media decided to put out. Anyway, so Retribution was produced again by Chris Zeus Harris and Shadows Fall, and this time it was released on Everblack Industries, which I believe is their own label or something associated with them, and it was once again recorded at Planet Z in Hadley, Massachusetts. All right, so this album, if you're looking for a band to mature, I believe they achieved that, but they still kept a lot of their old elements, but were able to move on and, to me, make a more melodic album. So and you may or may not agree with me, so we'll hear what you have to say after I intro these songs. The first song on the album is an acoustic instrumental. It's called The Path to Imminent Ruin. It's a lot of cool melodic guitar playing on there. You can hear the different layers between John and Matt, and it immediately goes into My Demise. Do you have anything to say about The Path to Imminent Ruin?
It's a nice acoustic intro.
Okay. There we go. Next. So, there's not much to say. It's 20. It's like 30 seconds long, something like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's fine. Right. It's their guitar playing, so I don't have anything negative to say. It's good.
All right, it goes into My Demise. My Demise, probably my favorite track on the album. It's just a fast, brutal song. Has a great groove. That's a good combination between the drums and the guitar work on it. Chorus is relatively simple, it just says My Demise and goes right back into the verse, but then they extend it the second time. So unlike my criticism of Testament and the Night of the Witch, where I think they should have extended the first chorus, in this particular case, they didn't. So it was just My Demise one time, and then they went into it again the second time. They extended it. I like that. I don't know why I felt so differently about Testament. I have to kind of go back and listen to Night of the Witch again. Maybe I'll feel different. It's been a while. But anyhow, so it's a relatively simple chorus, but it's melodic, and I like the background chants that go on in there. Song slows down, middle way through about 2:40 with some clean guitar work, some clean vocals that eventually turn into some shouting growls, and then it goes into some really cool guitar solo work and stuff like that. I really, really enjoy this song. What are your thoughts on it?
So, Zakk Wylde would be proud of the pinch harmonics. It's not bad for a metalcore sound. Clean vocals are honestly better than what was on War Within for the most part. They've more of that straightforward sound, none of that whine that you hear out of a lot of metalcore singers. The solo is pretty awesome around the 4-minute mark, and I would say the drums have improved a lot. That's. I have more to say on some of what you said earlier as we go, I guess. I think
okay.
I'll hold off for now.
Sounds good. All right, song number 3, Still I Rise. That is, to me, a really cool song on this album. It was the lead single, and you can see why. To me, there was a lot of work done on this song. It felt like it was almost kind of like, we're going to make this our make or break song, and yet the album didn't break, and it was tough. But I like the song a lot. I mean, it's probably the most accessible song on the album. It's got a lot of really good guitar work. It's got some nice leads heading into the main part of the song. The chorus is extremely melodic, and to the point where the vocals even hit a higher pitch than you normally hear, especially from this band. But, you know, the guitar work on this song is just outstanding. They really just kind of went for it on this song, but unfortunately, because of, you know, not enough promotion behind it, this song never really went anywhere, and neither did the album.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. You said, yeah, like you said, this was the first single. I thought it was interesting that the second was a cover of "Bark at the Moon,"
which is off the bonus. It's not even off the album.
It's a bonus track.
It's the deluxe edition of the album.
That's weird, but you know, whatever. So this definitely falls into more of the metalcore framework than My Demise does. You know, it features mostly more singing and less harsh vocals on this track. It's not bad. Again, you know, like I really like the solos so far on this album. They sound, you know, this might be one of the best solos that I've heard from either album so far.
What I like about the guitar work on this album, it's amazing to think that it's, to me, far supersedes what went on during War Within. Mm-hmm. And to think the War Within had some really good guitar work. Yeah. The guitar work on this album is outstanding.
No, the drums and the guitar have improved a lot. It doesn't always... You don't have to enjoy something specifically, like style-wise, to recognize that the skill that they have has come a long way. Like, even though some of the stuff is not necessarily my style, what I personally enjoy, I can appreciate and I can recognize how skilled they have become in this short of time. They've been playing, you know, so many years, but this is 5 years difference between when the last album we talked about came out. They've had more time to mesh together as a band, and what I mean is, you know, Brian Fair came in. This War Within, you said, was his second album, so they've had more time with him. And Jason Bittner, no, that was his third album, and Jason Bittner this was his second album. Right. So now at this point, they've added 2 more albums to that 5 years, and there's more experience. They sound better together. The production's better so far. And yeah, there's a lot of factors. Like you said, maturity, I would agree.
Right. Okay. So now the next song, song 4, is War. Now this is a really unusual song in that Shadows Fall wrote all the music for this song, but the words were taken from Bob Marley's song War. And it is, I mean, there's nothing other than the lyrics, because there's no melodies taken from Bob, no anything other than words. And this is a brutal song, in my opinion. You know, it's just a consistent onslaught. The chorus, you know, prepare for war, and then, you know, then there's victory, and you have the death growls from Matt and John in the background. I mean, this is just a straight up, you know, just in your face, brutal, you know, almost like a melodic death metal kind of metalcore song all in one. You know, it's weird. I like it. At the same time, it's just so rough. It's just like hits you in the face as soon as you walk in.
So I'll be honest. This one did not grab me at all. Like most of the songs, I really did my best to just really analyze and listen to something about this. I just kept getting lost in thought on this particular track, and I had to rewind several times going through it. It never grabbed me. It was very repetitive, and the drums again are great, but that was the only thing that really stood out to me on this track.
And I get that completely, because there's not a lot of dynamics to this song. That's a good word to use.
Yeah.
It is basically just straight onslaught, beginning to end. And that sometimes doesn't necessarily give you a good song. And obviously in this particular case, great lyrics from Bob Marley, but it's just a rough song. Then that goes into the next song, which is King of Nothing. Now things change. They go back into a lot of melody. They got a melodic intro. They got melodic verses. It's a really rough chorus. And then they got some really melodic solos. So there's a lot to like to me for King of Nothing, excuse me.
Yeah, it was a lot of grungier sound for Metallica.
Yes, yes. So to me, they almost feel like War should have been somewhere towards the end, maybe even last. And from Still I Rise to go into King of Nothing would probably have been a better choice. But here we are. So, what are your thoughts on King of Nothing?
So this is where, going back to one of your earlier points, I really disagree. It is that I feel like so far on this album, a lot of what's missing is melody, the riffs. I don't like the ideas on some of the riffs as much. So what I mean by that is I understand what you're saying, where there are melodic moments that usually start a song off. Excuse me, I was losing my voice there. There's start a song off. So there are moments that they'll start a song off with a melody and it ties into different parts, but it's almost separate from everything else, where then it goes into just that kind of chuggy metalcore sound, and it's very defined. This is the melodic part, this is the metalcore part, this is the singing part, and it's not as combined or as fluid as the older stuff. And what I mean is like the stuff off of War Within, off of One Blood. It's more defined by section. So what I feel is like there is less melody throughout the songs, and then there's just melodic sections. So this is where that really started to sink in, was on this track. There's an underlying riff, but there's this rhythm-based sound where the vocal rhythm has the accompaniment of the instruments. Like the instrument of the song is the vocals. So the later vocal melody is kind of the focus, but it's the vocals that drive the songs. And then you'll get the solo, or you'll get a riff here or there where there's not like a lot of room to breathe behind the vocals. There's these complicated there's these complicated guitar structures, but they're almost drowned out by what's going on with the vocal track. So, the solo's short, it's all right. I'm not really digging this track, but there's more that I do find on this album that I did enjoy more, but these back-to-back, War and King of Nothing, I didn't enjoy that much.
Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, it is what it is for you, and you've stated your case and made your peace.
I'm trying not to be just overwhelmingly negative or anything like that, because this is a preference thing, but at the same time, I hope listeners are recognizing that I'm trying to find the good and the bad out of everything.
Right, for sure. So the next song is The Taste of Fear. You got a quiet, clean intro, some melodic guitar, and then the song gets going with a really cool riff. It's got a melodic verse. You got some deathy background vocals that have some, like a little bit of clean pre-chorus on it that's sung in harmony with a nice melodic chorus. I like this song a lot. I mean, to me, again, it's everything that I like about Shadows Falls in this song as well. I'm pretty sure you have a different opinion.
Okay, so this is going to be one of the last ones that I just really did not like at all. The riff at the beginning, I agree. I really like it. I thought it was a great riff. Then it goes into kind of what I was saying before, but this is the biggest culprit on the album, where the vocals are just constantly overlaid, and there's almost never a moment in this song without vocals. So there's no room to breathe for the instruments, and that's fine. That's part of the style of this music, but there's something about it that I don't like, because what I enjoy, in metal in general, is there's this kind of back and forth where, like, say with Iron Maiden, you have the moments where Bruce is singing, but then there's also moments where you just hear the instruments behind it playing. There's that distance between it. There's room to breathe. There's room for something else to go on, and for you to appreciate different elements of the music. There's even moments where you just hear drums for a second, and that gives it, impact. But here, there's just everything going on all the time, and I'd say the latter half of the song is better, where there's the more the clean vocals, and it's not as just like layered and nonstop. But like, I don't know, this is again why I say it's not as melodic, where it's constant. There's just something going on at all seconds, and it just feels like the metalcore version of ADHD.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes too much to handle. I get that completely.
Yeah.
And for me, sometimes I recognize that, sometimes I don't, and sometimes it works for me, and sometimes it doesn't. In this
there are songs that works for me, but on this particular one, it just didn't.
Right. See, for you, it doesn't work. For me, it's okay. I like the song, so it's just one of those things. I get it, because like we said, sometimes those things can just be overwhelming, orally, when the AUR song of word,
I'm sorry.
When you're listening to sometimes it can be just overwhelming, visually, and just
it's overstimulating.
Yeah, that's it. Stimulating. The stimulation of the song is just too much sometimes. I get that completely. So the next song is Embrace Annihilation. There's a lot of different metalcore elements that are going on in this song. You got clean vocals, you got the start and stop guitars, you got the dirty vocals, you got the death growls. But at the same time, you get a lot of melody. I like the chorus on this song. It's very cool. I like the whole part when they say "Welcome to the Apocalypse." I think that's a pretty cool part of the song. And you got some really good harmony guitar solos. So to me, I could see where there's a change from the previous songs into this song. And for me, it sounds like it's getting better.
Agreed. So it's odd to me that at this point I've started to enjoy the clean vocal sections more than the harsh vocals. and well, I mean, just from I enjoy a lot of different music. Don't get me wrong. Like I like metal primarily, and there are some days where that's all I want to hear. But there are times where I like other stuff. Like I enjoy bands like Heart and the Eagles and, different genres of music too. So it's not like all I do is listen to death metal. But it is my preferred music for the most part. So
have you heard Mark Tremonti and him doing Frank Sinatra?
I have not heard that yet. I saw that it happened.
Yeah, I gotta hear that.
I'm not gonna judge it until I hear it. So
there you go.
Maybe we can talk about it in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
But, so again, like I said, I've actually, on these particular albums, I've started to enjoy the clean vocals more than the harsh vocals. There's more melody in this song, in this period, than what we've heard in the last few tracks. And I really like the guitar riff and the acoustic parts. I think overall, this is a really good track.
Yeah, it's one that I like. I realize I liked it a lot more now that I've heard it again than I did the first time. So moving on to the next song, it's a Picture Perfect. Something that's beginning to become a regular occurrence is acoustic intros for them. And in this song, they have an acoustic intro that has got a little bit of an electric solo into it. But then the song goes into some clean vocals with Brian. And Brian, in this particular case, is singing in his natural register. Well, in his natural voice, but a slightly higher register. So it's unlike Inspiration on Demand, where he just seemed like he didn't know how to sing. This is a lot better. He's singing a little bit higher, but it sounds like he actually knows how to sing. So that is nice about that part. And it's got a melodic chorus that's sung relatively clean, and of course some more melodic solos. So what's your take?
Yeah, so you said it sounds like he knows how to sing, whereas it doesn't. That's why I recognized when we were talking about that other track, I can't remember which one it was, where it sounded like he was out of tune.
Inspiration on Demand.
That's right. Okay. So, I recognize that was intentional, but here it's more apparent that he has, like I said, dimension to his voice. He can sing very well, and so it's not it's not just the kind of yelling sound. He has a multi-dimensional voice, and it's, to me, one of the more enjoyable songs on the album, and it's got a nice solo, and you said it had that kind of acoustic part that ties into some of the other songs. It ties into Embrace Annihilation. It ties into The Path of Imminent Ruin, and it even into the final track, which we're going to get to. So there's some cohesiveness to this album throughout.
Right, exactly. So before we get to the end, though, we do have a public execution to go through.
Oh shit!
There's a lot of riffing going on at the beginning of this song, and there's a lot of interplay with the vocals as well as the background gang vocals and the deathy parts. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. It's a quick song. It's a speedy kind of song. When I first heard this song, I actually was watching a video of them doing it live in concert, and it did not grab me at all. I thought it was just a lot of noise. When I listened to this version of it, a little bit better. The chorus is a lot more melodic than I gave it credit for. But at the same time, this is just one that doesn't do it for me. But it's it's better than some of the other songs that are there.
Yeah, I agree. It's it's kind of fun. It's one of those call and response style songs. It was clearly written for that purpose. I'm not a big fan of that style, but it's one of those kind of concert songs where they can say something and the audience can chant back, and it's another. It's got another solid solo. I'm fine with it. It's better than some of the other ones that I didn't like more, but it's mostly filler.
Right. Okay, I get that. And then the final track on the album, which we already mentioned, is Dead and Gone. Has an acoustic intro, which ties into the other songs. This is definitely the last song on the album, but it's not a bad song. I actually think this is a pretty good song. It's relatively straightforward in metal, in my opinion. And so it just kind of goes for it at the end, and it's the closer. I mean, I like the song. It's got a lot of good elements throughout the song.
I think that's a good way to put it. It feels like a closing song. I have been to a couple metalcore shows, surprisingly. One of my former coworkers was a metalcore singer, and I've mentioned my friend George. We went to hit one of his concerts, which had some metalcore bands that I can't remember their names, but they've kind of made their way in the industry. So, I've seen this stuff before, and this felt like a lot of the songs that bands would close their concert on. Like I said, it ties into Picture Perfect. It ties into the Path of Imminent Ruin. It's got that acoustic guitar theme that's going through it, and it's not bad. It feels like it feels like the end of the album, and there's a certain vibe to album closers that all good albums have, that it feels like things are wrapping up, but it's not like the track that you put on as your single, but at the same time it's enjoyable. It's a fun song, I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's an album closer, and it does the job it's supposed to do, and it kind of it leaves a good taste in your mouth. It leaves a good thought on the album for you. It doesn't end on a thud, so that's the good part about it.
Yes.
So for me, this album, it has its ups and downs. I think the first couple songs are really, really good. And I think in the middle it kind of gets lost, and then I think the end, it really picks up and brings it back around and says, "Hey, we're still here. We're still pretty good." So there's definitely some ups and downs on this album.
Can you imagine they're on the stage? Hey, we're here. We're still pretty good.
Exactly. So what are your thoughts on this album?
I mean, it's a little more metalcore than I really enjoy, but I would agree with your assessment. The beginning is pretty strong. The middle, I didn't like at all, and I guess I can see where somebody might enjoy that stuff, but I gotta think that there's a lot of the same kind of mentality out there where the songs at the beginning, the songs at the end are just much stronger than what's in the middle. So yeah, I mean, it was better than I thought I would be able to get through it, I guess. Trying to be generous. They're a very talented band. They're very skilled at playing, and they've only gotten better. The production is better, like I said. The songwriting's more mature. The lyrical content I did not pay as much attention to on this album, so I can't really go into in depth. I definitely paid more attention to it on the first album that we talked about, but I could feel that feeling of like the band had kind of come into their own here. So I would say from a production and maturity of player standpoint, it's pretty strong comparatively.
Okay, I see that. I mean, it's one of those funny things with this album that, it was strong for me. I thought I really thoroughly enjoy it, but it's just strange. It's sad to me that they were not able to get to that next level.
It is to me as well, because I would say this band is better than some of the ones that have really made it. It's sometimes just a matter of timing. I think they're a little bit ahead of their time in their genre, And then by the time they inspired a lot of what would become metalcore, and then bands took off on that, and then they were coming behind almost in a natural progression, and they were behind bands that were doing the same thing that they inspired. So it just didn't kind of work out for them in the same way that other bands that in the same vein were doing,
Right. And to me, and maybe I'll rant about this next week, but this is one of those things where having the right management, having the right people at the record company make a huge amount of difference. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because quite honestly, and I'm not trying to take a shot at this band, I don't see personally how it is that Lamb of God is as big as they are. I just don't. Because I think Shadows Fall to me are relatively on par. In some cases better, some cases not so much. But, it goes to show you, Lamb of God got signed to Epic Records, and Epic Records knows what to do with extreme music. They have the resources and they have the people that do it. Atlantic didn't. And then when you're in independence, you have only so many limited resources. And those are the types of things that really affect the growth of a band. Yeah. And so, I was astonished the day that I went to see Anthrax and Lamb of God, that Anthrax, maybe at this place filled up maybe half to 3/4 of the place, and Lamb of God comes on and the whole place, just packs in, standing room only. And I was just like, really? When did this happen? And with what song? Because they had Redneck, and that was a big song for them, and they had a big video for it. But really, one song is not going to do that. I mean, in some cases it does, but in this genre, it's not. It doesn't always work that way, and it was just really weird because Redneck had already been out for several years by the time Anthrax and Lamb of God toured together. So it was just really strange to me. I could be completely wrong and misreading something, but that's the way I feel about it, and that's the way that I interpreted what I saw. So it's just really strange to me. But it's unfortunate for Shadows Fall, but they're getting back together, and at least the guys in the band are in relatively successful bands themselves now, not necessarily huge. Bittner's with Overkill, John Demise with Anthrax, and so forth. So, all right, well, that brings us to which album we think is better than the other one. Why don't you go ahead and go first? So I want to hear what you have to say.
So, for me personally, I like the more melodic elements off of War Within, or The War Within. I like that there's still some of that tinge of death metal from leftover from their early career. I like the rawness of what they're doing. There's a lot of good ideas. It's not as defined in some ways as clearly in the metalcore genre. And I just overall enjoyed some of the songs better on The War Within, so that's the one that I'm going with.
Okay, I can see that. So after doing this exercise and listening to both albums back to back and very close to each other, I originally thought without a doubt that it was going to be Retribution. And then I listened to War Within again, and I'm like, man, there's some really lot of good elements on this album that I really, really, really enjoy. And so, much like you had last week with King Diamond, you had the albums really close to each other. Like, one's an 8.3 compared to the 8.2 or 8.0 for the other one. I think for me, these are that close. And, yes, there's that lull in the album for Retribution, where there's some songs on there that just don't don't do it for me. But there's a couple of songs like that really on The War Within as well for me. So, but I think overall, when I listen to everything, I break down the production on both of them, and you mentioned that you like the production was better on Retribution. I think both albums sound great. Zeus is an excellent producer. He's an excellent engineer, and he's an excellent mixer. So in the end, I'm going to have to give the edge to The War Within as well, just because I think as a complete unit, I think it does better than Retribution, although there's elements about Retribution I like better.
Okay. I'm a little surprised.
I know you thought that I was going to go with Retribution. Because like I said, there's elements I like a lot better, but as a whole, you have to look at the whole thing as a whole. The whole thing as a whole.
Really?
Yeah. You can't look at the whole thing as not a whole, because then that's not the whole thing.
That's fair.
Anyway. All right. So that brings us to tonight's Big Four, which, of course, is Big Four Shadows Fall songs. You get to go first again because I want to hear what you have to say.
Okay. So my number 4 is Ghost of Past Failures off of The War Within. I mentioned it earlier. For all the reasons that we talked about earlier, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good track. My number 3 is Of One Blood off of One Blood. Go figure. They, still retained some of their death metal sound, and this opening solo was just really awesome. It's a good main riff too, and I like the vocals a little bit more on this particular album. I think they were still trying to do some of that death metal stuff, and his voice sounds really good on the album. My number 2 is To Ashes off of Somber Eyes to the Sky. I like the lo-fi sound that they went for on the album. It's different vocals. It's Phil Labonte from All That Remains. I'm not super familiar with All That Remains, and I know it sounds different, but I liked the harsher death vocals on the first album, and the overall melodic death metal sound is pretty great. Yeah, they are an American band that picked up on a lot of the melodic death metal stuff and did a good job with it. And my number 1 is Pure off of Somber Eyes to the Sky. I love the jazzy drumming. It's such a cool riff, and the vocals are great on the track. I've heard this song before, and I was like, oh, I didn't realize this was Shadows Fall. I actually listened to a bunch of songs, not just from the first couple albums, but this was the stuff that resonated with me more, and I did give a lot of stuff a chance, but these were the 4 that I felt were the best to me.
Sounds pretty interesting. For one of the few times we have zero crossover.
That does not surprise me.
So the song that I was talking about before that I liked from the older albums is the song Thoughts Without Words and Destroyer of Senses from The Art of Balance. Those 2 songs I've heard several times, and that's what I was thinking of. I was incorrect when I said Of One Blood. Although I have heard it, it wasn't the song I was thinking of. So that's a correction there. I am not as much of a fan of the older stuff as you have shown to be, and I get that because it is more deathy, so it is more within your playbook. So my Big Four Shadows Fall songs are as follows. Number 4, The Light That Blinds from The War Within. It's just, I don't know, I like a lot of the elements of the song, excuse me. I like a lot of the things that are going on. After watching Jason Bittner play through the song and teaching the song, and teaching his drum track, really, I thought that was pretty cool. So I really enjoy The Light That Blinds. Number 3, from Fallout from the War, the song In Effigy. I think it's got a really cool riff at the beginning, and it to me, it's probably the best of all the songs that are left over from The War Within. It could have easily have been on The War Within and probably done really well, but I could see where it doesn't necessarily fit as well. There's a contrast to that. Number 2 is Redemption, the lead song off of Threads of Life. Again, another song that just stands out from the rest of them, be it because it's got a really killer riff or some really good guitar work, but it's the first song on the album, much like In Effigy, much like The Light That Blinds. All three of those are the first songs off the albums. And so, continuing that trend, my number 1 song is My Demise off of Retribution, which is, for what it's worth, The Path of Imminent Ruin is technically the first track, but the first fully realized song is My Demise. I just really love that song. When I hear that part where he goes My Demise, I love that part, and I just I get all vocally and ugly faced on it. So that's my big 4 for tonight.
All right.
So you surprised me by picking 2 songs off of Somber Eyes, but I guess I can understand why, because that's more in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely something more along the lines of what I typically listen to, and Pure is a good song. Like it just listen to the drumming on it. It's very jazzy, in the vein of some of the stuff like Cynic, in a way. At moments, I'm not comparing them to exactly. Sean Reinert was a whole different, drummer than really anybody out there. But at the same time, I could hear that like jazziness of the style, which I really enjoyed. Well, so cool. Definitely check that one if you don't remember it. But I just kind of resonated more with the earlier stuff, even though I did give a lot of it a chance. It didn't appeal to me in the same way, and I would hope that makes sense. No, that definitely does. So thanks for bearing with me for this episode, as far as putting these 2 albums head to head with each other, because I know this is not your wheelhouse. So well, I mean, like I've said in the past, that anytime we do this is a chance to find something new and different that you may not have necessarily liked before. And there were bands that, I gave more of a chance, and now I am a fan. So you never know what's going to happen. If you're listening to music, keep your heart and your ears open and give things a try. Sounds good. Well, that's our big 4 Shadows Fall songs for tonight, and that's the end of tonight's episode. If you want to hear more from us, remember to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to leave us a message on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. If you catch us on YouTube, be sure to leave us a comment, or if you can, send us an email to debatingmetal@gmail.com. If you use Spotify, be sure to check out our playlist from all our greatest hits episodes. And I have something to say about that. I need to say something. Here's the thing. I asked Matt tonight if he could see the playlist, and apparently nobody can see the playlist. So I'm a little pissed about that. That's weird. Okay. Yeah. So because there's a little button when you go into the 3 dots, it says make private. Well, none of them say anything about being private. So I need to figure out what's going on with that so that I can then get all these public again. And that might be why no one has liked any of the playlists. So, all right, we move on. It's good to find out. Yeah. So remember to tune into the next episode where we spark up another exciting metal debate. On behalf of Kenneth and myself, stay safe, and remember, always turn it up to 11. See ya.